Do the Lakers have an identity that they can lean on in times of trouble? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, sometimes on weekends and even on holidays. We appreciate you making us your first listen and helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcast network in this or any known universe. I'm Brian Kamenetsky with Andy Kamenetsky. We appreciate you guys watching the show every day, whether you get it through Apple, whether you get it through Spotify, whether you're one of the 37,000 plus subscribers to the YouTube channel. We certainly appreciate it, Andy. And as we enter 2026, Happy New Year to everyone. The Lakers, to say the least, are in a tough spot. 2025 ended on a down note. 2026 is starting with them in quite a pickle.
Well, you could take the glass half full version of this, because before 2026 even began, they landed on a New Year's resolution, which is to find an identity. JJ Redick was asked after the Pistons lost the 128-106, again, the Lakers remaining undefeated for double digits losses. They are remarkably consistent. When they lose, they get
Go
their
hard
asses.
or go home.
Oh, they get their asses handed to them. Like, there's no other way. They will not lose a squeaker, man. They won't lose a squeaker in part because they only win clutch time games. But if they're going to lose, they're going to give the other team their money's worth. But anyway, sort of through the prism of Detroit's identity of, among other things, constant physicality, JJ Redick was asked if the Lakers, 31 games in, have an identity, a DNA of their own that they can lean on. And JJ said, quote, "Still trying to figure that out. And I know that's maybe a cop-out, probably is, but I do know that we have had a lot of stops and starts, and we've tried to, not just the staff, I'm saying our team, the players have, everybody. We've really tried to play the right way every night and have the right intent. The flow of lineups and rotations and all that has been challenging for everybody, not just the coaches. It's just a challenge for the players, and building an identity is difficult. I think if you think about our team last year, and this team is different, our identity will eventually be different. But we didn't get that identity until late January, it felt like, which, side note, is interesting. That identity was pre-Luka trade, because Luka, well, maybe that was around when Luka was traded, but certainly late January, that's right around when it happened. And then we had to shift again. So yes, he's talking pre-Luka, then post-Luka. But I don't think that's unnatural. I had a meeting with Phil Jackson last year, pretty early in the season, and he said, I always felt like I knew who my team was by Thanksgiving. I think that's hard to figure out with this team right now. And to be fair to JJ, in terms of what he's talking about with the constant injuries and guys in and out of the lineup, there are only two Lakers on actual NBA contracts, as opposed to two-way deals, that have not started a game yet. I just looked this up. Maxi Kleber and Adu Thiero. They're the only two Lakers on big boy NBA contracts who have not.
By the way, both of whom have lost opportunities to start in part because of injury.
Well, or I guess, yeah. I
mean, I'm not saying either one of them would have.
No, but that's actually a really good point.
Both of them did miss significant time.
Yeah, that is actually, I had not thought about that, but you are correct. 9 different Lakers have started at least 4 games. Jake LaRavia is the only Laker who's played in all 31 games. Rui Hachimura and DeAndre Ayton, the only other Lakers who've missed fewer than 5 games, and Rui is about to exit that list. Luka, LeBron, Austin have missed a combined 31 games. So while, and we'll talk about this, I think there are other reasons that this team is lacking identity beyond the injuries are a legitimate factor.
Here's one of the things that I find really interesting about this identity question, because there was a time earlier in the season when the Lakers felt like they kind of had one. And it was, we talked a lot about vibes, and that I think was part of the, the connectedness of them. There was a sense, at least, that guys were on the same page with how they were playing on both sides of the ball. I think there was an idea that this was a team that, first and foremost, played hard, and consistently hard. I think there was an idea that they moved the ball well, that they were unselfish, and the different guys could step up and score. They were shooting the ball a little bit better, which I think helped with all these things. But looking back, I kind of wonder if most of that stuff wasn't really an identity in how we're going to play. We're going to be physical offensively, try to get to the line and all this other stuff. Like, try to impose our will, at least in the ways that we can. If it was more, we're just going to watch Luka play at a super MVP level and Austin play not at an MVP level, but as a clear-cut all-star, like a clear-cut all-star level. And those two guys, whether you want to call it regular performing, overperforming, or whatever it might be, give us the wiggle room to decide whatever we're doing kind of is our identity, because the wake of that, like, allows DeAndre Ayton to be better and gets better shots for Jake LaRavia, and everybody benefits from this sort of fountain of excellence that those two guys were putting out. But what you didn't actually have was what people would consider to be, like we saw with the Pistons, and that relentless physicality and identity. That what I was thinking of after I heard JJ talk about this.
I think there is likely some truth to that. Like, Luka and Austin got off to such incredible starts that, like any team, when their two best players come out of the gate super hot, it's going to help them. I do think, though, some of this was DeAndre Ayton playing extremely well, independent of what specifically Luka and Austin were doing. Rui having, one of the most efficient shot profiles for like the opening month, like in the entire
from
game.
Not just from three, from the elbow, from everywhere.
From everywhere. Well, look, man, if you still look at like cleaning the glass, Rui is, other than at the rim where he's basically around league average, he is somewhere between high 80s, low 90s percentile for his position, basically everywhere else. It is among the reasons that once he's back, they need to make sure to get him the ball more. But like, I think there were a lot of guys playing at a high level early on. There was also more synergy. There probably was also a determination at the beginning of, we're not going to have LeBron, and we have to really make sure that we are paper overing at worst, offsetting at best his absence. So I think that created a certain degree of determination. And also, too,
you're right. There was a really heightened sense of needing to get off to a good start.
Right. And too, like you contrasted the Pistons and the Lakers lacking identity compared to them. And that's obviously true. But that Pistons team had played together for a couple years. The Lakers were actually, I think, in the process of looking for an identity, because even the holdovers from last year, there was only like a handful of them who really matter, like LeBron, Luka, Austin, Rui, Vando to the degree that JJ was going to play him, and that was certainly not certain. Jackson Hayes to the degree that JJ was going to play him, which was also uncertain. And some of those guys missed games last year too. So even the holdover sample size still required a search for an identity. So they were in the process, I think, of trying to find it. To whatever degree they landed on it, because they actually landed on it, versus Luka and Austin just being great, combination of both, whatever, that has over time disintegrated, in part because of injuries, in part because, and this is something JJ's acknowledged, LeBron in certain ways has acknowledged, and you and I have certainly acknowledged, LeBron's return has muddied some of what they're doing. And it's not entirely LeBron's fault, but it's made it more complicated, and it's very clear nobody quite knows what to do with him on the court, what he's supposed to be doing. I think his presence is muddier. Like, he's never not been the most important player on a team before.
Yeah, and he addressed some of these things
Yes.
after the Pistons game.
Right. And I think there have been times where, to be perfectly frank, and we've talked about this before, I think LeBron looks disengaged, and which I don't mean to say phoning it in. I mean disengaged.
Explain. Okay, let's stay on this, because this question of whether or not they ever really had an identity, or
I don't think they did.
Right. Or what their identity could be. You know, like how you would define that, what kind of identity this team could create given their personnel, is one that at the very least, the Lakers seem like they are trying to find an answer to. So we'll get to that next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by GameTime. During basketball season, there is nothing like being in the building, the energy, the crowd, that first big run that gets everybody on their feet. The fans want to be there for those moments, not stuck refreshing screens with janky Wi-Fi or guessing what the tickets are actually going to cost, when not with the red tape. That's where, in the fine print, that's where GameTime comes in. The GameTime app gives fans the advantage back, making it incredibly easy to score amazing tickets, fast, simple, and without the guesswork. Browsing the GameTime app is straightforward and intuitive. Finding tickets takes just a few taps. Prices include the fees up front, so the total is clear from the start. Whether you're talking about an NBA game or just whatever live event, everything is right there in one place, all the info you need. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, NBA, for $20 off your first purchase. Download the GameTime app today. Get in on the action.
So before we jump back into this question of LeBron, of the team, of the Lakers figuring out just who they are, like, frankly, Andy, aren't we all going through that process, just trying to figure out who we are? I do want to let people know about the Everydayer Club. There are people out there, we know, we get your emails, that would prefer this show to be delivered without ads, and we can do that for you. It's the Everydayer Club. If you join, it's $5 a month, $50 a year. You get an ad-free audio version of Locked On Lakers, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, every other major podcast app. However you like to get it, we can deliver it to you. Plus, an invitation to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. And Andy and I, once we figure out how to do it, we'll try to be part of those conversations as well. So, to do this, you go to the Locked On Lakers page here, which is lockedonlakers.supercast.com. You can also check the show notes for it, lockedonlakers.supercast.com, and you can sign up for the Everydayer Club. If you do not want to, and you just like the show the way it is, delivered to you how it is, totally fine. We are never going to charge you. There will always be a free version of this, but we know some of you would prefer no ads. All right. The LeBron question is obviously fascinating because he's LeBron, because of the Father Time questions, because he's as of yet not playing at last year's level, but certainly has played better than those like initial couple of games. He's sort of in I think for me at least kind of an in-between place. He was not great, I thought, against the Pistons after a really hot start. The other teams, I think, are recognizing some of the weaknesses. I think LeBron is hurt by Austin's absence a great deal.
As is Luka.
The whole team is. But it's going to make it harder on LeBron because
only Nick Smith Jr. is benefiting from Austin's absence. He's the only guy not hurt. He's the only guy that's not hurt.
It's go do you do you, Nick Smith Jr. And so, there's still, I think, a good chance that they can figure out how to make this work. Like LeBron talked about it after the Pistons game. Like he was asked by someone about playing off ball, and he's like, I've been playing a lot off ball, which is true. And not in a, while Luka's in the game, LeBron, generally speaking, plays off ball. And the Lakers, I think, have started to figure out how to use him more effectively in that way. The issue for me isn't so much like LeBron offensively. Obviously, defense is going to be a question, how much he can pour in. But it's just they need to, being the Lakers, they need to understand you can't lean on LeBron to fix problems, to elevate your team out of a stagnant stretch or whatever it might be, in the way he has historically, even through much of last year. Right now, at the least, he can't do that. And other teams recognize it, and the Lakers need to find other outlets for it. So like you said, it's not necessarily anything LeBron is doing wrong. And I do think he's playing hard. I think off the court, I agree with you. The engagement is different.
That's specifically what I'm referring to. And the reason I'm even bringing this up with identity, beyond the fact that finding a more defined role for LeBron on the court is clearly still a work in progress. If his role is not defined, you're going to feel it. So in that sense, they need to solidify, exactly what it is for LeBron to be doing. And he and Luka just need to find a better synergy, because the minutes when they play together, it's starting to become less of a small sample size, and it ain't getting any better. Like, they're just losing those minutes when those two are on the court together. I know there's context. Who are the other people who's missing, yada, yada, yada. They're not winning minutes with those two together, and those two are going to have to be, for the time being, on the court together a fair amount.
Right. It's also worth noting, too, they're going to have a harder time winning the LeBron without Luka minutes as well, which had been a place where they had been able to find some success, because now LeBron doesn't have the support of Austin. The whole infrastructure is different.
But your identity isn't just what happens on the court. It's your culture. It's your leadership. It's all that stuff. And to be perfectly honest, LeBron has seemed disengaged from this team. And it's not anything in terms of like a big stink or like a big drama created, but it's things that add up. Like saying that all things being equal, truth be told, it's an honor to play on Christmas, yada, yada, but I'd rather be at home. Or, I'm not really watching basketball these days in my free time. I'm watching golf. Like, LeBron used to be a basketball junkie. He used to watch this stuff constantly. It's being less available post-game, post-practice. Like, to LeBron's credit, very much like Kobe, when you and I covered Kobe pretty much always made himself available. LeBron pretty much made himself available for the overwhelming majority of time, which, again, to his credit, that is what your leaders are supposed to do. LeBron has made himself less available. You combine that with Rich Paul's podcast comments, talking about the things the Lakers are lacking, that they're not doing well, roster construction issues. LeBron's going to be here through the end of the year, but not even so much because he wants to be here, but where the hell else is he going to go? Like, those things add up. And LeBron, I want to make it clear, because we've said this many times, and I can hear some of the people screaming. We've said many times that it's Luka's team. He's the franchise. He's the focus moving forward. That is all true. There's an ownership onus on Luka as well that I think he needs to raise his level too. But LeBron is too big of a presence. He's too important of a presence for him to put out outward vibes that feel disengaged. And I think that actually affects the culture and the identity of the team.
I think that's fair to some degree. I don't know if I entirely agree with you, but like I think some of the stuff is just, like, I'm watching more golf now. I'd rather be home on Christmas with my family. I see less as disengaged with the team and much more just like old man stuff. Like, I've been at it for, you don't have to agree with me, but like, for a team that has trouble consistently mustering the energy and focus and urgency, I'm just telling you, I don't see that as him, like, as a disengagement from the team. I see it as, I've been doing this for 20 something years, and my preference is to be home with my family on Christmas.
It's not a great thing to hear from one of your team leaders, man. It's just not.
You hear Draymond say it's an old guy.
It wasn't good to hear from Draymond either.
I know, but my point is, it's not, I don't think it's like they're looking at it like everybody looks at everything LeBron does as calculated, as this, is that, he's sending signals. I think
that's not what I'm saying, for what it's worth.
But when people talk about LeBron and engagement and leadership and all these other things, that is often what they're talking about. And so I don't think LeBron is, by saying I'd rather be home on Christmas, is sending signals that, that are supposed to be. I think he's just, you can say better off not saying it. Fine. I'm sure the NBA would prefer you not say it. But where I do think the harder question comes, because this is one of those things where you kind of can't have, to some degree, both. I'll set it up, and then we'll talk about it we'll talk about it after the break. If LeBron is supposed to be, if this is supposed to be Luka's team, then it's Luka who needs to be the biggest voice, the front and center voice, the guy that you always hear and all that stuff. If LeBron behaves in the same way as he kind of always has in terms of engagement, in terms of speaking for the team or whatever it might be, and he doesn't seem to step back from that, then you can argue that you're going to run into other problems of, well, we all say it's Luka's team, but LeBron's not letting it happen. And so I think there is a dance here that is going on where, and I'm not saying LeBron's getting the exact balance correct.
I was going to say, I don't think it's that complicated of a dance, man.
Well,
just act like you want to be there.
I think we'll talk about it after the break. I think he is playing like he wants to be there.
Sure.
And he's trying not to lock himself into anything.
Okay. And
going forward.
I don't want to get super deep into this rabbit hole because I don't think it's
fine, but we're here. So we can talk about it. We're here. We can carry it on after.
Okay. Locked On Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. Fridays already feel different during basketball season. FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing with the NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour always brings something new, whether you're talking about boosts or bonuses or surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app, see what's happening during Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
So I understand what you're getting at, Andy, about this LeBron starting a rabbit hole here. But there are two things about identity. There's both how you play, the style of play, who can do what, how you want to try to execute on the floor. And we have between the two of us, a laundry list of problems that are making it hard, I think, for this team to adopt an identity. But as long as we're here, I think we can get, that's a show in itself. And, we can tackle that ahead of the Thursday's game against Memphis, the first of a rare home
non-consecutive back-to-back
against the same team. Just a little bit of the weirdness that is created by the schedule makers trying to lessen back-to-backs and also accommodate the NBA Cup. You get weird quirks like this.
Memphis is playing better of late, man. They're playing
sure
much better.
Are. And, Memphis is playing better. The Clippers are playing better. The Suns are, they're up to 19 wins. The Lakers, by the way, and we'll get to this probably tomorrow as we look in this game. This stretch of games are entering. It is still very possible for the Lakers to finish in the top four. They are only a game and a half as of Wednesday, before any games are played. They're only a game and a half ahead of the Suns to stay out of the play-in.
Indeed.
So that is the more immediate danger. I was feeling really comfortable about that a couple weeks ago. I'm less comfortable now.
Well, look, I don't want to say the good news because I will never, ever root for injuries, but they could get a little bit of help from Denver depending on how they react to Jokic being out for a month, and they're missing a lot of dudes.
But Christian Brown and Aaron Gordon should both be back within the next 10 days. So that will help them. And you want to talk about a team that does understand how to play together and does have an identity. Like, granted, a lot of that is centered around Nikola Jokic.
I need to see what they look like for a month without Jokic to believe it.
No, I don't think they're going to pull away from anybody, but I don't think they're going to collapse either, assuming Brown and Gordon come back sooner rather than
they're not that far ahead of the Lakers to begin with. That's
correct. No, that's my point. The Lakers could still jump up to third, second or third. I don't actually third. I don't think they're catching San Antonio. All right. But the other part of the identity conversation is literally who are the culture leaders of your team? Who is doing the talking? And this to me is where the LeBron and Luka and Austin question really is relevant to this question of identity, because it's not that one is better than the other, but to say the least, the personality difference, the style difference, the leadership style difference between Luka Doncic and LeBron James is very different. And the Lakers are transitioning to this place where Luka is the voice of the team, but he's a different kind of voice. He's a much different media figure. He is far less, I think, both comfortable and enthusiastic about, like, LeBron, rolls his eyes and complains. He loves the engagement, loves the dance.
I've said before, LeBron has been, and again, this is a credit to him because this is what superstars are supposed to do. LeBron, in our time covering him, has largely made himself very available.
I mean by that, like, I actually think LeBron, like, Kobe was like this. Kobe liked it. Like, ultimately, there are times when he was annoyed by it and didn't want to do it, but ultimately, Kobe liked engaging with this lever to manipulate both how people talk about the team he plays on and to try to change the way the team is doing stuff based on using the media as a tool like that.
Absolutely.
LeBron comes from that side of the how I'm going to use the media and deal. Luka does not. Luka, I none of this has to say like what he says behind closed doors, how he addresses the team at practice, how he leads, and all this. As a media figure, Luka is far different from LeBron. And I do think LeBron, who has on the floor taken a backseat to Luka, he's taken a backseat to Austin. Like, the people who say that LeBron won't adjust are just flat wrong. I do think this is a space that is probably harder in some ways to navigate because Luka is such a soft voice, relatively speaking. I do think there's some degree of disengagement, like, not my team anymore. I think that's part of it. I think that's kind of where you're coming from to some degree. And I agree there's a part of that there. But I also think there's a part of it that is, as a professional, whether it's in self-interest, I don't want people coming out and saying LeBron is just being an a-hole about these things and won't give up control. I don't want people talking about me in a way I don't want him talking about. I don't think he wants to Bigfoot Luka.
I don't think it is either.
And it would be really easy to do that if he continued sort of leading and speaking and doing all those things in the same way. To me,
look, yes, it would be, but it's also really easy to avoid. And what I'm talking about, I don't think is actually that complicated. The piece of Luka needing to grow as a front-facing leader, I agree with you. That is something that he needs to do. It takes time. We covered the last 10 years of Kobe's career, and we were around Kobe. We were around those teams from the 2005-2006 season, the first season that Phil Jackson returned, through the end of Kobe's career. And we watched an evolution of Kobe as a leader. Like, it took Kobe a little time to recognize that everybody get in line or get the F out of my way. You can't lead people that way.
No, and he also always was in the LA market,
right?
Which makes it, because there's a big difference between doing, sort of being the man in Dallas and being the man in LA. It's just different.
But we watched Kobe in really commendable ways grow as a leader. And, we talked to his teammates. His teammates recognized and appreciated that growth. So There are areas where Luka needs to become more comfortable, find different ways, I think, to use his voice, not just privately. And the private stuff, you could argue, matters more than the public at the end of the day. But the public stuff does matter, and he needs to do that. What I'm talking about with LeBron, it's not a question of avoiding bigfooting, because I think that's actually pretty easy to do. I'm talking about avoiding stuff that seems like disengagement, which is also really easy to do. Like this middle ground that I'm talking about, it ain't that complicated. It's, do you decide to avoid doing certain things that appear like disengagement or not? It's not that hard.
You used like the Christmas thing as an example, which I just don't really agree with necessarily. But
Well,
like,
at the time
for
of what the
example,
team was going through, I do think it matters.
okay, and I understand your perspective, and I'm sure a lot of people agree with you. What do you think about the some of the stuff about future forward stuff, about things that are committed, like, because that to me is a trickier place. And you mentioned,
Give an example
before.
of what you mean.
Well, like you mentioned before, if I understood correctly, like, this type of, like, after this, we're here because we can't really go anywhere. Like, there is a really, I think, conscious, the elephant in the room is LeBron going to be a Laker after this year? And I think the answer is increasingly no. But
I agree.
They're trying real hard not to talk about it. Is that part of it? Because I do think like some of the Rich Paul stuff is related to that. I think Team LeBron is sort of adjusting to a new world in which, LeBron kind of can't make stuff happen the way he used to. But like,
that's less of what I'm
terms
talking
of like, do you feel like that's part of the engagement, or because I'm not trying to debate it. I'm just trying to understand a little bit more of where you're coming from.
I mean, does it matter at all? Sure. I mean, LeBron is such a big figure. Everything with LeBron matters on some level. It's less of what I'm talking about, if for no other reason than I don't think the Lakers are particularly scared of LeBron leaving.
I don't think anybody wants to put themselves into any kind of, on the record at all about what's going to happen.
That is less of what I'm talking about. I don't think LeBron owes it to the Lakers to give more of an impression that he is 10 toes down beyond this season. I don't think he owes that to him at all, particularly if he's not sure that's what he wants. Hell, he may not be sure he wants to be an NBA player after this season.
I think if he struggles as much as he kind of has, I think that's 100% on the table.
So I don't think that piece of it would be fair to LeBron. That's not even what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the here and now. And just you can't be LeBron sort of in the background. And, when we covered the last 10 years of Kobe's career, Derek Fisher was a big voice in that locker room. Lamar Odom was a big voice in that locker room. Pau Gasol was increasingly a big voice. Like, there can be more than one voice without bigfooting each other. It's not always Shaq v. Kobe in terms of voices. And again, I'm not talking about LeBron potentially bigfooting Luka. I think LeBron is smart enough to know how to avoid that if he wants to. And I agree with you. I don't think that's what he wants to do. I think he's been very conscious of not doing it. And I don't think Luka's interested in a territorial contest between him and LeBron either. Again, I'm just talking about that type of engagement for a team that often lacks urgency, period. It doesn't be helpful in those ways.
I see what you're getting at.
I don't think there's much to debate.
The debate, I think, would just be to the extent to which, you think LeBron is both disengaged or how much it matters. Like, I think was it the first game? That game where it was, where he sat on the bench and was like stone faced.
Yeah.
That was really bad.
It was. I mean, to be fair to LeBron, that was back when his back was really bothering him. He really may have had.
He might have just been really uncomfortable. No,
he really may have been uncomfortable.
But just like that was a terrible, both metaphorically and literally, a bad look.
It looked bad, and he's aware of that stuff.
That kind of thing needs, and that I think for the most part has changed.
Yeah,
I think the Lakers, just as an organization, are in a weird place. This is Luka's team. Luka is the leader. Luka is the face. Luka is the voice. Luka is all these things. But the Lakers haven't had an organization where the player who was front and center wasn't also a big voice since like the first couple of years of Kareem, maybe. Like I can't think of a time where the star player on a good team wasn't a big giant person who could kind of do all like the headliner stuff. And I think the organization is learning how to do some of this stuff differently because Luka is just not cut from that same mold, and it's which is understandable in a lot of ways. And so we'll for Thursday's show, we'll talk about the second half of this identity question. Yeah. The Lakers have an identity question with who is the how they present themselves to the world, how they talk to each other behind closed doors. They also have an identity problem with how they play on the floor.
I was going to say, I want to make sure we get into that because I think some of this is due to the absences that JJ mentioned, but there's also inherent roster construction issues that I think would have created identity issues at full strength, and also style of play that I think muddles what I think they want to be.
Part B, part 2, if you prefer numbers, of the identity conversation coming Thursday. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is breaking. Go hang out with over 37,000 subscribers. We'll see everyone tomorrow.